Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dadsigner podcast. I am Michael Smith, the host of the show, and today I'm joined by Alex Holt. Hey, Alex, welcome to the show.
Michael, hey man, how's it going today?
It's going well. Why don't you tell people a little bit about where you're from, what you do, and a bit about your family?
Yeah, for sure. So I am born and raised in the Indianapolis, Indiana area. I've been here my whole life, other than 1 year of life. My wife and I got married, made a crazy decision to move to Southern Indiana for a job, knew no one, and lived in an apartment. And it was great and miserable at the same time. But then came back to Indy and have been here my whole life. I'm married, have been married for almost 12 years now. We've got two kids. Asher is our son. He's 8. And then we have our daughter, London, and she just turned 6.
Nice.
Yeah.
8 and 6, good ages.
Yes, fun, but also like constantly at each other's throats. So it's always a balance in our house. Like you just never know when they get home from school if it was a great day or if they're going to tear each other apart.
Yeah. And then there are those moments where they're like the kindest to each other.
I literally just took a picture of them out in our front yard, sitting next to each other. They love to get cars to honk as they drive by our house. That's become their new obsession. But they're like sitting next to each other. Our daughter has her head leaned on my son's shoulder, like best friends in the world. And then not even 10 seconds later, she's slapping him with a stick because she's mad he won't do what she wants. So it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah. I wonder how different we are as adults. We just like suppress it, but like inwardly we're hitting the other person with the stick.
Yeah. Like in my mind constantly. Yes.
It's funny you mentioned the kids love to get cars to honk. Our backyard, there's like a tree line and then a walking path in a local park.
Mm-hmm.
A couple weekends ago, we were out there, burning brush and stuff in our fire pit. And our youngest daughter was sitting on the swings, looking at the park, just going, "Hi, hi." And she was trying to get people to react or respond.
Yep.
And then, like, anytime someone would, she'd be like, "Mom, Dad, they said hi back." And we're like, we think we're okay with this, but also
Right.
it's a little scary.
We live at the end of a street and then we're kind of like on a street. It's not super busy. People, should drive a little slower on it sometimes, but like our kids love to be out front and play. And I'm afraid there's like a neighborhood email newsletter situation that happens with people on our street. And I'm afraid we're going to end up in the newsletter one day of like, hey, we need to address the kids that are getting cars to honk as they drive through our neighborhood. Because that's the kind of things that would appear in this neighborhood newsletter. And so we're probably going to be, the cover story, the next edition here in a few weeks. And I'm just going to celebrate it and tell them, make them honk louder.
Rather than someone actually coming to your house being like, "Hey, your honking is waking up my sleeping toddler.
Right.
Could you avoid it between the hours of 12 and 4?
Yeah, sure. Nope. We're just going to end up in the newsletter.
Yeah.
I learned that's how I'm not supposed to work on my car in my driveway. Apparently that's not sanctioned in our neighborhood. I learned that in a small note in the newsletter 1 month, just as a reminder. And I was like, oh, this literally came like a week after I had just replaced an alternator in our car and was working in the driveway till 10 p.m. So It's great. I love neighborhood newsletters.
Yeah. Oh, so good. We've really hit peak human communication in this era of passive aggressive newsletters.
So good. It's just, I don't know if it'll get any better.
I don't think so. Alex, you are the creative director / owner / primary proprietor of CRTR Studio.
Yep. Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So CRTR Studio is a brand design studio. We help visionary leaders create brands that change the world. And I say we a lot. It was started by my wife and I, kind of coming out of a season in the beginning of 2024. I'd been working full time at an organization, had always done brand development on the side. I was leading a team in my full-time capacity in marketing and communications, but just kind of missed being in the brand design space, really getting to work directly with clients rather than leading a team. I loved leading a team, but it was just different. And so in January of 2024, I unexpectedly lost my job. Was not something I saw coming, right? As I think most people who unexpectedly lose their job, like you don't plan for that. And so we really were just like, okay, let's buckle down. I'm going to find a job, get into the marketplace somewhere and figure this thing out, like take care of our family, right? My wife works, but it's for a couple of different small businesses. And so it's not like substantial enough income to provide for our family. And so went through probably 60 applications, and heard back from 3 places. 2 of them were just like a flat out automated, no, hey, we're doing something else. One of them I interviewed twice, and then they selected another candidate, which was totally fine. Like they selected someone they felt fit the role better, which made tons of sense to me. And they were a great organization, like still super connected with them. But I ultimately walked away, was like, I don't have a job. I don't know what I'm going to do. When the organization that I was forced to leave, when all that happened, I was given severance. So like I had a runway, which was great. And my wife one night over dinner just looked and said like, why don't, like, you've been doing freelance work through that whole time. I'm very grateful for the people who were like, hey, I would love for you to do work because I know you have time now. And she's like, you've been doing that. Why don't we just like pursue that as if this is going to be the full-time thing? We dreamt about that. We had said we'd love to have our own business in 4 or 5 years, but all the things, right? You want to build the financial cushion. You want to figure out the systems and processes. And she's like, why don't you just pursue it? And then come the end of severance, like if it's not looking like it's going to work, then like we'll figure it out, right? Like I could go get whatever job I needed to get to provide for our family. And so we kind of rebranded what my freelance business had been and launched CRTR Studio. And really just trying to build this small agency here in Indy that serves founders, people who've got visionary ideas. They want to make an impact in whatever space they're in, for profit, nonprofit. It doesn't really matter to us. But we just want to work with visionary founders who have a passion for what they do and believe that they can provide a really helpful solution that makes society better, whether that's selling the best product, whether that's offering the best resources, services. And so we built a brand design studio around that principle of like working with founders to create brands. And so we do that in 3 different phases. We work with them on their belief, really helping them understand who they are, what it is they care about, and putting language and messaging and positioning around that. We then move that into identity. And so that's the classic like logos, type, colors, the whole visual identity system that tells the story. And then we work in the activation space. So we try to stay in our lane as a brand design studio because that's what we're best at. But we also know that these brands, they need websites, they need creative assets, they need collateral to help launch. And so we offer those services, and then anything beyond the creation of those services, if they want ongoing marketing support, if they want email campaign support, we've got a network of partners that we reach out to and either bring into our projects or send our partners directly to them and say, hey, like this is the best filmmaker that I know. Let's work with them on the brand film. We'll help script it. We'll help create the thing. But they're going to be the one who executes the final product. Because yeah, sure, I've got a camera. I could go do a brand film, but like, it's not going to be the best that we could get. Let's go get the best talent that we can find based on your budget and bring that together. And so as we record this, we're coming up on close to a year of officially having that business, which is crazy. It has worked. People have still said yes to jumping kind of on this crazy ride with us and building brands that are making an impact here in Indy and beyond.
Nice. How, when you see a brand that you've created, you pass it off and they didn't ask you for suggestions, how does it feel to see some of the assets and resources? Like, are people stewarding the brands well? How do you help them steward the brand well post, delivery?
Yeah, it's hard. I have seen some of our partners and some of the people I've worked with over years and do an incredible job, right? We set them up, we give them a brand guide, we do all the incredible things, and they do great. And then there are some that I'm like, I don't, where did you find that in the brand guide? That didn't exist ever until you did that. And so I had to really learn at an early stage in my design career. This is like design principle overall, that like I am not personally tied to my work in a way that it is my identity,
Hmm.
right? So, like, even when we design a brand, I'm super passionate about the things we design. I really want them to be the best we can deliver, but it ultimately is not a reflection of me as a human being, and as someone who has like creative ability. And so I had to learn how to separate that. And that's helped me be able to say, hey, when we hand this thing off, because we are choosing to be a brand design studio who specializes in the creation of the brand and not the longevity and execution of internal campaigns, I had to get really good at just saying, like, this is yours. Now, I'm going to give you all the tools in the world, right? Like, people, a lot of people in the design space love to hate on a product like Canva. I think Canva is a really incredible tool for a lot of the brands that we serve who don't have a full-blown in-house creative team,
Hmm.
where we can create templates and resources and brand guides, and they can go create, and 90% of the time they're hitting it out of the park and everything looks and feels on brand.
Yeah.
And so we love to set up resources like that for our partners. Now, if they've got an in-house creative team, then we do a deep dive into the brand and we help them, and then they launch, and it's great. But that's just not most of our clients. Most of them are other solopreneurs, small to medium-sized companies, who they understand the value of brand and they've invested in that, but they don't have a full in-house team. And so we really try to help set them up to succeed. And then we just have to be okay with, like, we know what we created and delivered, and it's theirs. Like, we created it on their behalf. We did not create it for ourselves. Now, our brand, our internal studio brand, yeah, I can be mad about us throwing something on social, doing something that I'm like, that doesn't align with how we execute our visual identity system and our brand.
Yeah.
But our partner's brand, it's theirs. Like, they own it. That's the thing they've asked us and invited us into, and we want to help set them up to win as they execute and share that brand with the world.
Yep. That makes sense. I had a couple conversations last week about, and I hadn't really thought of this as being like a core deliverable, but a couple brand studios are going beyond just here's the brand guide, but identifying then, are you guys utilizing Figma? Are you utilizing Canva? And then going in and setting up the brand system, in Figma, in Canva, so that, it's great to have the document. It's even better to have the exact color codes preset in your
Yep. And
in your tool.
that's what we love to do, is, especially, again, a lot of our clients do use Canva, but if they're using another platform, we will gladly do that. And we also, especially for clients that we build websites for, we actually don't deliver a PDF brand guide to them anymore. We build their brand guide on the back end of their website. So
Mm,
it is an unlisted page on their website. So it's also just much easier to access. It's something they're more familiar with, not like, where in the world did we store that PDF? And I don't remember, so I'm just going to get close. It's like, here's a bookmark page. You can just grab the color code. You can download the color file, like whatever you need. We really try to make those tools way easier for clients to leverage, rather than the traditional way of like, here's a PDF that, collects dust on the shelf in a folder somewhere.
yeah. If you could pick one client's brand project that you worked on recently, what's like one that stands out that's a highlight, so much fun to work on?
Yeah.
It's like
We
picking a
worked,
favorite child.
I know, I
So be
know.
careful how you answer.
I know. No, actually, one of the projects that we had started before I left my job and then kind of carried over into that space, we worked with an organization. They're good friends of mine. They launched a brand called Innovator, and they really help businesses close the gap from strategy to success. And I think is my favorite for a couple reasons. One, it was one of the first times we got to like proof of concept this whole brand design studio process. And the guy who runs it is a mentor of mine, and so he gave like crazy candid feedback along the way, really helped us refine our process through that, and was so like willing to be flexible, let us try things, let us run, different tests, whatever. And so I love that. But it was also a brand where we really decided on the visual side, we're not going to use any photography to support the visual identity system, which This is not always the case. I'm not making some crazy bold statement about designers, but it can be a crutch in what we do. It's like, oh, we'll just slap that over. We'll slap that text over photography, and that'll look great. And so we were like, we don't want to do that. Like this brand, it doesn't fit. There's not photography that makes a ton of sense. And so we really had to think through the visual identity system of how do we create a solely graphics based package that can deliver over and over in a variety of formats. We brought an animator to work in on logo animation. So like we really wanted to bring motion and all of that to life in that project. And so I love what we came up with. Like I really love the direction that we landed. And it's been fun to now see that brand grow. They're one of the ones who does a really incredible job leveraging the tools and the systems. I give the guy who owns the company a hard time. I met him through a cohort that I was a part of, and he led the cohort and he opened up the first slide deck of our first session, and it was coffee beans, classic Microsoft PowerPoint like template. And I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I think you have great content, but I don't think I can look at this for the next 16 weeks or whatever. And now to see him using the brand deck that we've created for his brand and like watching presentations that he's done, I just love seeing that project come to life.
Yeah. Are they still following the no photography thing?
Yeah, they are. So
Nice.
they don't use photography at all. We really came up with, I think, some innovative systems for how they can represent what it is that they do through some icon design, and just through the visual layout of how the brand presents itself. Because it's a business, kind of business strategy organization, we had to create a lot of charts, a lot of graphs, a lot of, hey, this is this framework that we're going to introduce you to. And so it lent itself really well to just a fully graphic treatment. And then we leaned into that even further in the rest of the execution of the identity system.
Yeah. You didn't want to use conference rooms, hands on computers,
No,
whiteboards.
I didn't want to use everything that every consulting firm pulls from Unsplash and throws on their website.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably a smart move. Probably a smart move.
We try to be smart. We're not the best and brightest all the time, but we try to think really strategically about what works well for the partners we get to serve.
Yeah. That's great. Having shifted from full-time work to losing your job to launching this studio, how did you navigate that as a dad? And are there areas that you reflect on that you're really proud of how you led your family through that? And are there areas where you're like, well, I really learned a lot in this period?
Yeah. I mean, I think learned so much, right? Like that's a wildly disorienting time to go and be in an organization. And when I lost my job, it was, I got pulled into a meeting with HR and was told, hey, there's been these accusations made against you. We haven't found any of them to be true. We did a full investigation for 3 months without your knowledge. And we think it's best for you to leave the organization regardless. And I was like, had never had an HR conversation in my life in terms of like performance, ethics, anything like that. And so it was just like, it wasn't just the loss of a job. It was this wildly disorienting. I'd been leading a team and like things had been going really well. And that like utter blindside. And so I think as a dad navigating that, one of the things that my wife and I said from the very beginning, is we just want to be really honest with our kids. We wanted to give them more credit than most people would for their ability to process that information at their age, right? I think a lot of people would be like, oh, things are just changing and daddy's not going to work today. And my kids were like, but why? Because they would come see me at work all the time, right? Like it was an office environment where like they would swing by, hang out. They were always welcome. And so it would have been a very weird thing for us to be like, oh, I'm just all of a sudden not going to work. And so we were very honest with them about the fact that daddy didn't have a job anymore, that I had to, I lost my job. I had to leave my job. And I didn't know what was next. And I think navigating that taught me a ton, that like just a ton about how much of my identity I had wrapped up in my job.
Mm,
Because now, like at the time, I was just a dad. Like I didn't have a job. I was doing some freelance stuff on the side. But my identity really came back to like just me as a human being, as a person, as a husband, as a father. And so it gave me an opportunity to embrace that in new ways and to be more present in my kid's life than I had been. I've worked for mission driven organizations for the last, prior to this, for the last 8 years. And that can always be really great, but those missions often require a lot, because it's organizations that run on lean budgets, lean resources, and they want to achieve really big things. And often the only way to do that is for people to contribute above and beyond that 40-hour a week full-time employment role. And I was like, oh, these are great missions. I love being a part of these. I'm going to do that. And you quickly get into this world where you're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and it feels like it's all for mission. And then you have a moment where you lose everything, and your kids are like, we feel like you haven't been around for a long time. I'm like, well, that sucks. And so you really just learned a ton about like what I'd put my identity in, and where it should be placed at, and just learned that I wasn't like the hot shot that I would sometimes think that I was, right? Like I'd climbed the ladder, so to speak. I was leading a team. I was in this like in inner leadership circles and making big decisions. And I think my kids really helped me reframe that idea of like none of that really mattered, because the things at home were missing the mark, because I was prioritizing work, and prioritizing that like status and feeling like I had to carry this thing, more than the things of being at home and playing basketball with my son out in the driveway.
mm, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that you brought your kids in. When I recall when um I chose to leave the last company I was in and go out on my own. My wife goes, you know, you should tell the kids like what's going on. And it never crossed my mind because it was always just like, well, it doesn't concern them. And she shared like, I just think it'd be helpful to have a little conversation saying, hey, dad's leaving his job, he's going out on his own, this is what's happening, and we're all right. And you guys will be provided for, you're important to us, and we'll be okay. And I think, yeah, I think you're right. Like it just so frequently gets missed because it's like, well, we're having the adult conversation. This we don't want to um put the pressure and the responsibility on the kids. Like that's not theirs to carry.
Yeah. And I think like it led to some really beautiful moments in our family of, cause right, like I'm home now all the time. And so it's led to some moments where like my kids get to see my work and be way more involved and even give me feedback on the things that I do. And it led to some really comical moments, right? Like sitting in the lobby of my kid's school waiting for our son to come out. I had already picked up my daughter, and someone asked like, hey, how's it going? This was pretty shortly after. And my daughter just said, yeah, my dad got fired. And it was like, cool. There's like a lobby full of parents. And I'm like, yeah, yep, that's cool. And so it's just been these moments of like watching them process and learn from that. And then want to like also contribute to our family, want to be more involved in the fact that like, because I work from home, this is now my office space. And they always knew that my office space at work was usually pretty tidy, pretty organized. And so now like my son wants to jump in and help take care of our house and clean up the living room, because he knows like this is the space where I work. This is my office now. And so it's just been cool to see some of those things like change in our family a little bit, as we've figured out over the last year what this new dynamic looks like of me being home 90% of the time.
Yeah. And are both the kids in school?
Yeah, they're both
Yeah.
in school. So our daughter is in kindergarten and our son is in third grade. So I mean, during the school year, they're out of the house, 5 days a week. And then in the summer, it's just pure chaos around here.
Yeah. What do you utilize to focus during those months?
Uh, Coffee shops, lots of early mornings, and really just like trying to prioritize what needs to get done in a
Hmm.
day and saying, hey, guys, I need 2 hours. I need to lock in and I need to get this thing done today. Um, and then I'll be able to go out and play basketball, or we can go take a walk. And then I need to finish, some emails or whatever. And so it's just being flexible and knowing that like it's not a typical 9 to 5 anymore. They're going to be home. My wife's going to be home some more with her role. And so she is absolutely amazing at also providing space and time for me to go get things done. And then, also having a place upstairs in our bedroom where I can just go and lock away for a little bit of time. But I think it's just really about like prioritizing what needs to get done and being efficient with my time, and not, oh, I could work on this, I could go, do this, and really just trying to be as efficient as possible with that time. And then taking those breaks when I need them.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you utilize any tools to help you mentally focus or disconnect?
Yeah, so we, as a studio, we've got a project manager, and we use project management tools to really help us like stay organized and on track. And so we use that to really kind of lock in. And then I also just use like pencil and paper or a pen and a little checklist on my desk. I got a system from a guy. It's called Ugmonk. I love it. It's like a 1 day card. And so I use the system. This is actually my current like to-do list that my daughter left for me today. I think that's me, and there's some money involved. So hopefully it's a great day. But I use that to just prioritize my like single day. And these are just the things I need to get done in today, and make sure I can cross those off by the end of the day.
Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with it, Jeff Sheldon from Ugmonk has created a full suite of desk products, paper products, productivity products. Um, yeah, so you should go check it out.
Yes.
UGMONK. Uh, he didn't pay me to say this.
No, he didn't, but he should have.
Yeah,
And go support him, because the stuff
yeah,
they're creating is high quality and incredible. And as a creative, there is just something really nice about like writing down my day and knowing what I need to get done, and that feeling of crossing it off. I love being able to also take that with me. If I'm going to a coffee shop, like it goes with me,
yeah,
so that I know what I got to get done, and
yeah.
what is priority for me that day.
All right. Well, these conversations fly by. I want to ask you two more questions. As a dad, what has been your greatest parenting success? And then what has been your greatest parenting failure?
Yeah, for sure. I think when it comes to success, I think it's just that our kids genuinely love each other and love the things that my wife and I love. I think as a kid growing up, I loved the things that my dad loved. Right, he introduced me to them, but he also never forced me into them. It was like, hey, I love racing, I love basketball. We're big Indiana Pacers people in our house. Like, my dad introduced me to all of that, but he never forced that on me, and said, you have to be a Pacers fan. We're going to go to all these things. He was like, if you want to go, like, I'll take you. If you want to go to the race, like Indianapolis 500 is a big deal around here. And he's like, if you want to go, I'll take you. And I fell in love with it. And I don't think as a kid I appreciated the openness that I had to choose to fall in love with those things. Right. And so I think for our kids, that was something my wife and I both talked about. Like, we have passions, we have things we're really involved in and we love. But if our kids don't love them, like, I'm not going to force them to do sports because I want them to do sports. I want them to fall in love with things that they love to do. And that, I feel like, has been the story of our kids falling in love. And they happen to fall in love with the things that we have fallen in love with. My son is the biggest Indiana Pacers fan. If they don't go and win an NBA title in the next couple of years, he'll be crushed. I will be too, but he will be devastated. And so, like, watching them, our daughter falling in love with the things like my wife's favorite movie, Princess Diaries, from growing up. Like, our daughter loves it. It's her go-to movie. When my son and I go to a Pacers game, she wants to have a girls' night and have chocolate with mama in bed and watch Princess Diaries. And so just watching that, I think, is confirmation to me that my wife and I have given them space to make those choices. We've never said, hey, you have to do these things with us. If you want to stay home, that's great. Like, I'm still going to go to the race. I'm still going to go to the game. My wife's still going to do the things that she does, but you can join us, and we would love it if you did. And then I think my like greatest learning, greatest failure, right, um, comes out of that space of the realization of like I invested so much in my career. I gave so much to the organizations that I was a part of that I missed out on moments with my kids, of being a dad and being like a super present dad, right? I wasn't like not always there, but I just wasn't as present as I could have been.
Mm,
And I think so much of that has been this internal retrospection of like what I value and what I want my life to be about and what I want to matter. I want my kids at the end of my life to say like he was a dad who loved us with everything he had and everything else came second. Um, right? Like not his business, not his clients, not the things he was passionate about. He loved us and he took care of us. And I just didn't always have that prioritized early on in my career, trying to right, like trying to provide for your family, trying to do all the things that like dads want to do for our families. The order just got out of whack.
mm.
And so like losing my job forced me to reprioritize that order. And it's changed everything about how our family operates. And has been in the hardest season of my life, one of the absolute best things that ever happened. Because I now have a different relationship with our kids than I ever had when I was working full time. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, for sharing about your family, your work, all of that. If folks wanted to follow you, connect with you online, where can they go to do that?
yeah, for sure. So you can connect with our brand design studio, creator studio, CRTR Same thing on Instagram. We're pretty active on there. But we've got a podcast, the Creative Belief Podcast, where we just talk to creatives in all kinds of fields about creativity, why it matters, how it makes an impact and makes our world a better place, and this core belief that we think everyone is a creative. And so you can find all that on our website, social media, all that stuff as well. That's probably the best place. You don't need to follow me personally. I don't ever post on my personal profiles. So Creator Studio is the best place to get connected.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you're listening to this, also know that we have a YouTube channel version of all of these conversations where we I do go in and edit some of the visual aspects of the things that we talk about into that. So if you're curious to see any of that stuff, go visit crtrstudio.com or check out the YouTube channel. And yeah, this was great. Thanks for coming on, Alex. And I'm sure that we will talk again soon.
For sure. Thanks, Michael.